Hey everyone, and welcome everyone to day 2 of the High Performance Assessment. My name is Jason Burke. We have a great day on tap for day 2. We're going to kick things off with creative real estate investor Mike Wolf. Mike is the CEO of Wolf Mastery. He's been doing real estate for 30 years. He's going to show you the top real estate strategies, how to get property with little or no money, and in this economy. So we definitely have a treat with Mike here today. Also, we're going to have Blazar back here. Brad's going to talk about how to raise capital with high net worth individuals for your real estate deals, business, or special projects. So Brad's going to give you a wealth of information. And we're going to finish day 2 with me speaking, Jason Burke, event expert and CEO of High Performance Summit, how to create your own events, how to create your virtual and live events, what to do, what are the pitfalls to avoid. I've been doing events for 10 years. I've done over 200 plus events, and I'm going to show you how to create your own events and what to avoid. And so we're going to have a great day 2 at High Performance Summit. We're going to kick off here in a few minutes with Mike Wolf. We're going to go today at 3 p.m. Eastern, and if you're on the West Coast, that's 12 p.m. Pacific. So today will be a 3-hour day. We're going to have great content with two great speakers and 3, including myself. So welcome everybody. You can start your formal presentation, Mike, at 12:10. But I think you give people a few minutes of your background and some of the experiences that you've had, Mike, over the years. And so welcome, Mike.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Jason. Good to be here and good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, Mike. Well, I'm going to let you take it away right now, okay?
All right, sounds great. So yeah, one of the things that surprises a lot of people who don't know me, a lot of people thought, I've been doing this, by the way, for 31 years, and a lot of people just assume that I always had this big passion for real estate, and I do now, but nothing could be further from the truth. Back when I first started, I remember it was the middle of grade 12. I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, and my parents were always telling me, doctor, lawyer. And I'm terrified of blood, so doctor was definitely off the table. I thought being a lawyer looked kind of cool because you see those shows on TV and they always have these nice offices. And I go, that sounds like it might be okay. But that was really my parents' dream for me. And so I got my first degree. With that degree came a whole bunch of student loans. And I was pretty far in debt and decided, well, you know what, before I go back and get my second degree, I want to, pay these things off. And so a good buddy of mine, his mother was a manager at the phone company, which back then it was government owned. It was union, paid really, really well. And while I was there, I bought my first home to live in. And I remember my mortgage broker called me up shortly after I bought that property. And he said, Mike, if you want, you're making good money, your credit's good. If you want, I can get you another mortgage if you want to buy another property. And I remember saying to him, well, why do I want another property? And he goes, well, you buy it, you put a tenant in place, they pay down your mortgage. And eventually, 25 years down the road, the home is free and clear. And that's your retirement plan. And I go, well, that kind of makes sense. So I did that, stayed at the phone company, bought the second property. And a couple of years after I bought it, the market took off. And all of a sudden I was sitting on a whole bunch of equity as a ex-university student. I never thought I'd see that much money in my life. And I just remember thinking, okay, over the last 2 years, I made this much working for the phone company, and I made this much in real estate, and I don't even really know what I'm doing in real estate. And I thought, if I can do this by mistake, what would happen if I did this on purpose? I did this every day. And so back then I was in my mid 20s, and my ego kind of got the best of me, and I thought I knew everything there was to know about real estate investing, just because I had that little bit of luck on my first deal. And sometimes having luck on your first deal is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, all of a sudden I had this money to play with that I had never had before. On the other hand, I didn't really have any skills. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just happened to get really, really lucky on that first deal. My timing was good. There was nothing that I did that made it successful other than having really good luck and good timing. And so, being in my mid-20s, like I said, my ego got the best of me, and basically quit my job at the phone company, not realizing that, hey, now that I quit, I don't qualify for mortgages anymore. And also, I went and I told my parents, I'm not going back to law. I'm not going back to law school. That's your dream for me. That's not my dream. And I remember my mother said to me, Mike, go get your next degree so you have something to fall back on. And then if real estate doesn't work, then you got something to fall back on. And I go, nope, I'm going to make real estate work. I know better than you. And managed to promptly get into my next deal and lose almost all of what I made on that first deal because I didn't really, like I said, I didn't really have the skill sets. And the other difference was when I bought that first home, that was meant to be a long-term hold. I was going to hold that. That was going to be my retirement. That was the initial plan. Once I quit my job, I realized, well, I can't buy properties and wait for my retirement in order to, make a paycheck. I've got to make paychecks, frequently. How do I replace those checks that I was getting at the phone company every 2 weeks? And so promptly lost almost all of what I made. Luckily, I still had a little bit of money left after that second deal. And because I burnt the bridge at the phone company, couldn't go back there. And, being in my mid-20s and telling my mother that she was wrong, I don't need that other degree, real estate's going to work. I couldn't go back to her and tell her she was right. So I had to figure this out. And so I basically hired somebody to be my mentor, somebody who was successful at flipping homes. And I said, listen, I've got only a little bit of money left. I want to invest in you so you can show me how to do this properly, because this is my last chance. If this next deal doesn't work out, then I'm going back to living my parents' dream for me. So, when I get people who come to me and they say, oh, I don't know if I could be successful. I don't know if real estate's for me. I didn't even have a passion for real estate until I got that first paycheck. That was the first time in my life where I ever really knew what I wanted to do. So that's where I developed the passion. The passion came in the first paycheck. So for those of you who are tuning in here on a Sunday, one, I want to commend you because, back in those days, like I said, I was a know-it-all. I thought I knew everything there was to know about real estate, even though I had no clue. And so I want to commend you for being here and taking your time to educate yourself. Back in those days, like I said, I was a know-it-all. The thing that I teach my students now is don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. And always be learning new strategies, learn from other people who are more successful than you, learn from other people who are doing different strategies than you. And so that's how I got my start. Now I've been doing this for 31 years. I have made some other mistakes along the way, but I've learned a lot over these years. And so I've done pretty much almost every strategy you can imagine within real estate, everything from wholesaling to fix and flips to buy and holds. I've done multifamily. I've done a lot of different deals, tax deed options, foreclosures, pre-foreclosures. I've done a ton of strategies, and I love to share with other people what's worked for me. And so I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be here. And so, the question I get asked a lot, prior to COVID, by the way, I was pretty much semi-retired. Normally I travel full time. Right now I'm actually in Los Cabos, Mexico, and I'm just hanging out here for hopefully the whole winter, depending on, obviously I'm keeping an eye on what happens with COVID and whatnot, but normally I'm traveling full time and, semi-retired. And back in the days though, if we go back to 2007, the last big recession, I actually had a business that I called Foreclosure Fixers. And Foreclosure Fixers, obviously in 2007, when that recession happened, there were a lot of people in trouble. A lot of people were losing their homes to the banks. And right now, we're going to see, unfortunately, probably in the next 90 to 180 days, we're going to start to see more and more of that. We're going to see a lot of people, unfortunately, in trouble. And so Foreclosure Fixers, I would send out marketing materials that would basically say I can help stop the foreclosure. And I find I had two different types of people that would contact me from those marketing materials. The first type is, sometimes bad things happen to good people, and people get divorced and they get sick. And right now, obviously, with what's going on with COVID, we're seeing a whole lot of people that are, not by any choice of their own, people that have never missed a payment in their lives. They never dream of it. Now they're out of work. What are they going to do? And so for people like that, a lot of times, they're out of work, they'll find another job, and they'll be able to start making payments again, but they're not going to have necessarily the money to pay off their arrears. And for people like that, I would help pay off their arrears. They pay me back in monthly installments, and I'd help them stay in their home. So that's the first type of person. The second type of person, these are people that typically live way beyond their means. I mean, missing one paycheck throws them way off balance. And these are people that usually have a way bigger house than what they need. They have fancier cars. They're people that you would typically say are keeping up with the Joneses, I guess you could say. And for people like that, I would give them what I call a soft landing. And what I mean by that is, I would basically make sure that if I was buying their house from, quite often I would purchase their property from them. And I'd always make sure that they had, a damage deposit, several months rent, money for food. I'd give them a soft landing, even though I could potentially go in there and probably steal their home and give them nothing. Uh, I really love to teach people how to do ethical real estate investing and how to create win-wins and help the person on the other end of that transaction. So I'd always leave people in a better spot than where I found them. And one of the things that I realized when I did this, in addition to feeling good and fulfilled from helping other people, the thing that I realized is that, a lot of these people, if they lost their job, well, they probably worked with 10 other people that lost their job, and they'd send their friends to me. So instead of getting one big paycheck, I'd get 10 medium-sized paychecks, and that added up to a lot more money. And so everything I'm going to teach you is all about creating win-wins, ethical real estate investing. And the reason I told you about foreclosure fixers is when I was hearing that, the global economy was being shut down, to me, that was like, this is like, it doesn't feel real. I'm sure for a lot of you, this is all surreal what's going on right now, being locked down. And but anyway, when I heard this was happening, I decided I was going to start up foreclosure fixers again. And then, because I wanted to help a lot of people, and I could see there's going to be a ton of people in pre-foreclosure. And then I realized, well, you know what? I've got this extra bandwidth. I'm not traveling as much as I used to. I've got this extra time. Why don't I teach a bunch of other people how to duplicate some of the things that I did that were very successful back in that last recession? They're going to work really well coming down the pipeline. And what if I taught a whole bunch of people how to do that? And maybe instead of me helping, 50 or 100 families this year, maybe I train enough people we can help thousands of people. And so that's really been my mission since COVID started, is to create a movement of ethical win-win real estate investors. And one of the things, by the way, I don't even like the term real estate investor. I greatly prefer the term, problem solver, because behind every home that goes up for sale, there's nobody just randomly puts their home on the market. Either they're moving up, they lost their job, they're getting divorced, they're being transferred. There's always a story behind it. And the more people we can help, the more money we can make and create win-wins. And so that's the kind of stuff I want to teach you about today in the time that I've got. And I want to talk about, I guess, my most common question. Since COVID started, I've been on like so many podcasts and radio and summits. And the question that comes up every single time is, hey, Mike, what's going to happen with real estate? What's going to happen with the economy? And what we're heading into right now, we're not there yet, but we're going to be heading into probably the greatest transfer of wealth in history. And the key word when we talk about transfer of wealth, the key word is transfer. If you think of those snow globes, you shake them up and the little snowflakes fall from the top to the bottom. Imagine instead of snowflakes, those were $100 bills. And so right now we're seeing a whole lot of stuff at the top. A lot of people that a year ago were very, would be considered very, very wealthy. Imagine you own some office space in Midtown Manhattan. You'd be sitting pretty a year ago. Right now, that's a very bad position to be in, because office space, people aren't going to the office anymore. A lot of people are doing exactly what we're doing. They're hanging out on Zoom now. They're working from home. So if you look at JCPenney, if we're looking at all these restaurants and stores that are shutting down, that money isn't disappearing. These businesses are going under, but that money isn't disappearing. And so if you think about those $100 bills dropping from the top, if you're, and I'm preaching to the choir because you guys are here once again on a Sunday, educating yourselves. If you're educating yourself and positioning yourself properly, you can take part in that transfer of wealth and be on the good side of it instead of the bad side. Instead of being the person losing, you can be the person winning. And the best way to do that, like I said, is by creating win-wins and helping other people. So some real estate strategies are going to work extremely well, and some you have to really, really you'd have to be very careful of. So for example, I probably wouldn't be looking at office space in most cities right now. I wouldn't be doing a lot of commercial. I wouldn't be buying any development projects. I don't want to be building something that's going to be completed in 2 or 3 years from now, because we don't know what the economy looks like. Are we going to have wave 2, 3, 4, 5 of COVID? Who knows? What do things look like 3 years from now? We don't know. So I don't want stuff that is, I'm relying on good things to happen between now and then. And I'm a very optimistic person, by the way. I think that we are going to be better off. I think the planet is going to be better off 3 years from now than we are today. But I wouldn't be investing in stuff that is speculative, that's relying on that to happen, because there's stuff that's definitely not in our control. So stuff like that I would not be doing. Stuff that I would be doing is getting in and out of deals very, very quickly. If you can do a flip and be, get in, get back out of it in 30, 60, 90 days, probably pretty safe. If you're buying rental properties, one of the trends that we're about to see is the US is once again going to become a nation of renters. A lot of people, unfortunately, are not going to be able to make their mortgage payments. Right now, we're in a bit of a bubble because the government's still sending people money, and businesses are getting money. There's a lot of handouts being given out by the government right now. There's a moratorium on foreclosures, and I'm grateful for that. I'd hate to see banks foreclosing on people in the middle of a pandemic and kicking them out in the streets when there's because nobody has chosen to lose their job. Nobody chose for COVID to happen. And so right now there is a moratorium in most places on foreclosures. That isn't going to last forever. And so where the opportunities are going to be is you want to be in the path of progress. You want to see what is coming down the pipeline and how do you position yourself to be a problem solver for the different things that are coming down the pipeline. So right now, here's some of the trends that we're seeing. We're seeing one, we're going to probably see a lot of people going from owning to renting. What does that tell you? That tells you that if you get into the right markets and you buy rental properties, that rent is probably going to go up, and the value of those properties is likely to go up. But where are people moving to? We'll talk about Manhattan again. Imagine you wake up and you live in Manhattan in your one-bedroom apartment that's probably $5,000 a month, but you've lost your job. That's not, for most people, that's not sustainable. You're not going to be able to stay in your property for a long time at $5,000 a month. That just gets very unaffordable. So where are people going to go? The places people are going to go are where the jobs are being created and also where the cost of living is reasonable. And so right now, my personal favorite market, I love Atlanta, Georgia, and I have a turnkey operation, meaning I sell properties. We buy properties in bulk, we fix them, put tenants in place. I've got my property management team that looks after them. We sell those to investors all over the world. Well, a lot of people are thinking, oh, well, in 6 months from now, that market's probably going to go way down. I believe the opposite. People are going to be leaving markets that are expensive. They're going to be leaving places where there's no jobs, and they're going to be going to the places where there's job creation. Now, Georgia is a very business-friendly state. The government realizes that if they give businesses tax incentives, that the businesses will hire a lot of people, and they can make their money by taxing the workers, not the businesses. And so Atlanta is head office to Coca-Cola, Turner Broadcasting, Delta Airlines, Home Depot. The list goes on and on and on. I could list off hundreds of Fortune 500 companies that have offices and non-Fortune 500 companies that have offices in Atlanta because of that reason. And so there's always lots of jobs being created. And on top of it, it's very, very affordable. So we're going to see a lot of people moving there. On the west side of the country, we're already seeing people leaving California in droves, and they're going to places like Texas. What I found over the years is people, if there's something that bugs them, they're going to look for the exact opposite. In California, people are really sick of the state income taxes. There's tax on top of tax on top of tax. So where are they going? They're going to Texas, where there is no state income tax. Now, what some of these people don't realize is that the property taxes are very high. The money comes from somewhere. The government gets money from somewhere, no matter what. They're going to get your money one way or another. But in Texas, the property taxes tend to be very, very high, but Californians are moving there in droves because the prices of homes are a lot cheaper than in California. And so even though they pay high property tax, $1 million home in Los Angeles in a place like Houston is $300,000 or $400,000 bucks. So so you got to look at where people are going to. What are the trends? Where are they moving to? So Texas is just one. They're moving to Phoenix. They're moving to Vegas. They're moving to Idaho, of all places. I've seen a lot of people moving to Idaho. You want to be in the path of progress. The other trend that we're seeing is, we're seeing people moving away from the city centers. And people are realizing a lot of employers thought, oh, our employees could never work from home. That would never work. Well, now that they've been forced to do it, they're seeing that it works really, really well. And they're realizing, hey, why are we spending all this money leasing office space downtown when we could have our people working from Zoom? We could save so much money on our bottom line. And so now people are on the other side of it. The employers are realizing that, And the employees are saying, well, hey, we don't have to drive to an office every day anymore. So why don't we move to the suburbs where it's less expensive? We can get way more home, a bigger piece of land, and it's quieter, and we don't really need to be in the city center anymore. So that's another trend that we're seeing. So if you're investing and you're getting only into if you typically invest close to the city center, that might be something you might want to switch your strategy on a little bit, because that's what people are doing, and they're really looking for value. That's where they're headed right now. So you want to keep an eye on that. Another trend we may see, I haven't seen this yet, so don't panic just yet. I'm not trying to create panic, but as the social distancing becomes more and more of a thing, people may start saying, oh, we don't want to live in apartments anymore. We don't feel safe in an apartment. We want a single family home. We want more space. So if you're currently invested in multifamily, something to keep an eye on. You may want to switch to single family, but like I said, no panic, don't do that yet, but that's something that could become a thing. So these are the things you want to keep your eyes on. Now I want to talk about some specific strategies. Those are the trends. I want to talk about the specific strategies. And I know a lot of people come to me and say, hey, Mike, I'd love to get into real estate, but I've got no money. And, when I started 31 years ago, like I said, I started off with all these student loans. I had a whole bunch of debt, and my net worth was actually negative, and I was aspiring to get to no money. I had less than no money. So if you have no money, I'm going to teach you some strategies that you can, and even if you do have money, here's the thing about real estate. You start buying properties, even if you had, $5 million in your bank or $10 million in your bank, eventually that money gets all tied up into property, and then you hit a brick wall where you can't do anything unless you know some strategies that require little or no down. And so I'm going to teach you some of those. So one of the things that I recommend for people that maybe don't have a lot of cash is something called wholesaling. And for those of you who don't know what that is, you're basically finding a property under market value. And how you find that property, there's a million and one ways, but just think about what's happening right now. There's a lot of people losing their jobs. So there's all these people that are going to be going into what's called pre-foreclosure. Pre-foreclosure means the bank is they're behind on their payments. The bank is starting to tell them, hey, if you don't pay up by this time, we're taking legal action. Eventually, we're going to repossess your home. And these are people that are in trouble that need your help. And so one of the strategies, I'm going to use just really round numbers here. Let's say you found a property worth $200,000. Let's say you sent out marketing materials like I used to do, saying I can help stop the foreclosure. So sometimes, like I said, there's going to be some people you can help them stay in the home. There's going to be other people you can't, and you're going to buy some of those properties at hopefully a deep discount, and also leave them in a good spot too, the homeowner. So let's say, just for round numbers, you found a place worth $200,000. You could get it for $100,000, but you don't have $100,000. So what you're going to do is you're going to put it under contract. You're going to write an offer to purchase with them, but you're going to put an escape clause in the contract. What I mean by escape clause, you're going to give yourself a way to get out of that contract if you don't have a way to eventually close on that property. So we're going to write the offer. You're going to put a condition in there saying subject to approval by my business partner. Your business partner is going to be somebody who you're going to sell that deal to. And here's what I mean by that. So you found a property worth $200,000. You put it under contract for $100,000 with an escape clause in it. Then you're going to call somebody like myself and say, hey, listen, Mike, I've got this smoking deal. You can make $100,000 on it. If you're willing to give me $20,000, I'll sign that contract to you. A sign means that you're going to, instead of you being the purchaser, you've now made me the purchaser. I'm going to pay you $20,000. You get paid really early on. You get paid whether I'm successful or not. I pay you $20,000. I go do my thing with that property. Whatever I make, I keep. You've already been paid. If I totally screw up and lose money, you still get the $20,000. If I make $1 million, that's my business. I get to keep that. Whatever I make, but you get paid. And the beauty of it is you had no money into this deal. Some places you actually need $1 to make the contract legal. So you might have had $1 in that deal. So you don't really need a ton of money to do this strategy, but I'm going to teach you a smarter way to do it. So take that exact same example, and instead of wholesaling it and selling it to me for $20,000, you might call me up and say, hey, Mike, I got this smoking deal. If you're willing to be my money partner, we can split this deal 50-50. And now it takes you a little bit longer to get paid because we've got to go and market the property. We've got to go sell it. We may have to do some repairs to it. But let's say we make $100,000 on it. I make $50,000 and you make $50,000. And so we get to, you just gave yourself a raise. You're making $20,000 in the first place. Now you're making $50,000. So you just gave yourself a really nice raise. But then you get pretty sophisticated, and instead of that, you go, Mike, I don't even need you anymore. And then you go to what's called a hard money lender. A hard money lender is somebody who loans money typically at higher interest rates, but they don't really care that much about you or your credit. They care about the deal. You can bring them a really good deal. Let's say we'll use a really extreme example. Let's say they charged you 20% interest to borrow that 100,000, and it took you a whole year to do this flip, which means that you're doing something wrong. It shouldn't take you a year to do a flip. But let's say it did, just to give you like a worst case scenario. So now, after the year, you sell the home, you made 100,000, you're going to pay the lender, the hard money lender, 20,000. That's the interest. And I'm just using really round numbers here, but you're going to keep 80,000. So you went from making 20,000 in example A to making 50,000 in example B to making 80,000 in example C, all with none of your own money into the deal. Now, I know I'm oversimplifying it. I'm using really round numbers, but this is what's possible when you have no money. This is just some of the strategy. There's some other strategies, and this is stuff I wish I knew 31 years ago, because back in those days, I did things very traditionally. I'd find one deal, I'd save up the money for my down payment. Sometimes I'd be creative to get that money for the down payment, and then I do the deal. And then after that deal is done, I go find my second one. If I knew about some of this stuff, I could have had tons of deals going on all at the same time and making a lot more money. So that's one. Those are three different ways to make money off of that exact same deal. But here's what else is coming down the pipeline. As I mentioned, there's a moratorium on foreclosures right now. So that means the banks are not foreclosing on people. The counties aren't foreclosing on people. There's something called tax deeds. And what a tax deed is, when people haven't paid their property taxes in 2, 3, 4 years, depends on what county it's in, the county eventually will put the home on the auction block. And right now, a lot of the auctions are shut down. And my favorite auction, by the way, for tax deeds takes place in Houston, Texas. They've been shut down now, I believe, for 7 months. So normally, let's say at these auctions, by the way, they have tax deeds, and then they also have bank auctions, and it takes place normally on the first Tuesday of every single month. So imagine that 1,000 homes on average, and I'm once again using round numbers, it might be 800, 500, 11, whatever it is. There's a lot of homes that change hands every single month normally when there's no closure due to COVID. And so when these things reopen, there's going to be a massive backlog of properties that were meant to go to auction over the last half year. And then on top of it, there's going to be the new foreclosures that are coming down the pipeline. So a really cool strategy. I call this a trifecta of real estate. So every month a list is published. You can go to a website called publicans.com. P like Peter, U, B like boy, LICAN like Norman, S like Sam. Publicans.com. They publish a list there every month of the properties in Texas, and I believe they do Pennsylvania as well. And these, a lot of people will look through the list. And by the way, never, ever, ever go to an auction unless you know what you're doing. There are a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of ways you can lose your shirt. And I see it all the time. So don't go to the auction without getting some training. I've got a free webinar I can send you with some training, by the way. Email me, info@mikewolfmastery.com, info@mikewolfmastery.com. Tell me that you saw me on Jason's summit. I'll be glad to give you a free access to that, but never go to an auction. So I'm just putting it out there one more time. Don't ever go to an auction unless you know what you're doing. But anyway, so this list is published usually 3 to 4 weeks before the auction takes place. And most people will go through the list. They'll go to the auction, they'll bid. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And then they wait till next month and they do it again. And that's great. But a way better strategy, and I call this a trifecta of real estate, is that list that's published, that's a list of people in trouble. Those are people in pre-foreclosure that are losing their home within the next month. Do you think those people might be pretty motivated? If you sent them a flyer that said, I can help stop the foreclosure, or even if you sent a postcard that said, we buy homes, do you think that they might be in a position where they're very, very motivated to work with you? The answer is yes, they are. And so you want to approach these people before the auction and try to help anybody that you can, once again, create a win-win with these people. That's before the auction. Then, of course, we can't help everybody. There's thousands of properties on that list. We're not going to get to everybody. We can't save everybody, unfortunately, although we'd like to. So then we're going to go to the auction. That's the first part of the trifecta. The second part is we're going to go to the auction and bid like everybody else does and try to pick up some properties that way. And then a really cool third strategy that almost nobody has ever even heard of. And that's why you guys, I'm so glad that you're taking the time to educate yourself, because most people don't know about this. There's something called overages. Sometimes it's called excess funds. When these properties go for auction, if let's say the minimum bid is $5,000 on a property, and let's say the home sells for $50,000, that first $5,000 that belongs to the county fair and square. That's the back taxes. But that additional $45,000 that does not belong to the county. It actually belongs to the previous homeowner. And most of these homeowners have no clue that this money is owed to them. And so a really cool strategy that requires very, very little cash, once again, is to try and track down these people who just lost their home that have money owed to them. And I find it really ironic that if you went into a 7-Eleven store and stole a candy bar, the police would come and take you downtown and you'd get charged. If the government steals hundreds of thousands of dollars from somebody, there are billions of dollars in these excess funds that are unclaimed because people don't know it belongs to them. And the county makes very little attempt to try to attract these people because there's a statute of limitations. And once that statute of limitations runs out, if the people haven't collected the money, the county gets to keep it. That's their slush fund. And so a really awesome strategy is to imagine somebody just lost their home and they're obviously in a really bad spot. If the opening bid was $5,000, the only thing stopping them from saving their home is $5,000. And you go approach them and say, listen, I know somebody owes you $45,000. If you're willing to split that with me, and you get to decide what that split looks like, it can be 20%, 30, 40, 50. I have a friend that usually charges 40%, and her smallest paycheck doing this, and she's been doing this, I believe, for 3 or 4 years, her smallest paycheck has been $21,000. So anyway, to make a long story short, though, you're going to people that are in a really bad financial position, letting them know that somebody owes the money. You're going to help them retrieve that money. And only if you're successful do you get paid. So they have no risk. They don't lose anything. If for some reason you can't collect it, which is not normally the case, but for some reason you couldn't, they're not paying you anything up front. They have nothing to lose by working with you. And so it's a really great strategy. Once again, and that's the third part of the trifecta. It all comes from that same list of people in trouble. So you try to get them before they lose their home, try to help them. If you can't help them, then you try to purchase a property. Whether you win or lose on the property, you can go and try to track down these homeowners and say, listen, there's money that's owed to you. And once again, that all comes from the same list. And there is going to be such a massive amount of these properties that in the backlog, and also these new people that are, their businesses are shutting down right now and they're being laid off. There's going to be a huge opportunity with that. And so that's really where I believe a lot of the money is going to be in the next year. Once again, rental properties, I strongly recommend. But there's a whole bunch of other ways to, there's a whole bunch of other ways to make money in this upcoming market and a whole bunch of ways to help other people. But I want to open this up, see if I know I've thrown a lot of information at you, and I purposely talk very, very quick because I want to get in as much as possible during my time. So, but I want to see if there's any, I see we do have a question. So are you making it official that we can wholesale with you? Yeah, well, I'm a real estate investor. If you find a good deal, I'm already your first buyer. And so I know a lot of people that go, well, if I find a deal, where do I find my buyers? Well, I don't know about Jason, but I'll tell you that speaking for myself, yes, you can absolutely send a deal to me and I will definitely look at it. So, so please do send your deals to me. Any other questions that anybody might have? Or Jason, if you have any questions.
Yeah. You talked about a lot of the properties, people migrating to outside the cities and how the cities are going to be kind of more vacant for a little in the future just because of COVID. If you want to go into some of the markets a couple of the top markets that you're investing in right now and what people should kind of look for when they're placing the money and decide to invest in the market. I know some people feel comfortable investing in out in their backyard, but sometimes the best opportunities are out of state and not in your backyard. So if you go into that a little bit, that'd be good.
Absolutely. So first of all, investing in your own backyard can be good or bad depending on what strategy you're doing. If you live in California, for example, and you're looking to buy a rental property, the first thing I look at when I'm picking a market, I want to know, is it landlord friendly or is it tenant friendly? And what I mean by that, how easy is it to get rid of a bad tenant who's not paying rent? And in a place like California, I personally know some of my friends who has taken them over a year. And I'm not talking during COVID, I'm talking in regular times. It took them over a year to get rid of a tenant that wasn't paying, that was actually trashing their property. It took them over a year to get rid of them. So the legal system is very much in favor of tenants in a lot of markets. So you don't want to, and you also don't want to be somewhere where the government's talking about rent control, where you can't raise your rent. Like to me, it should be supply and demand. How can the government tell you when you can? They never put a limit on how much they can get for raises every year, but they like to take away our raises. And so I'm going where the government is friendly towards me if I'm buying and holding, for example. And so my favorite place is Atlanta. That's why I'm there. I think the laws are very much in favor of landlords. We can usually get rid of a bad tenant in around 3 weeks or so. So potentially get rid of somebody if they're not paying, and maybe get somebody in there before we even miss a rent payment if all goes well. So that's doable in Atlanta. And in a place like California and New York, if you get one bad tenant, that can totally ruin your finances forever. That could put you, I know people have gone into bankruptcy because of one bad tenant. And so you have to be very, very careful because your bank, if you have a mortgage on the property, I've never once had my bank call me up, go, hey, Mike, I hear your tenant's really bad. They're not paying. Feel free to skip your mortgage payments. Just, pay us whenever. I've never once had that happen. So if you have a tenant that's not paying you, your bills are still going to keep adding up. You're still going to get mortgage payments. You're still going to have to pay the insurance. You're still going to have to pay property taxes. This stuff doesn't go away. And so if you're supporting a bad tenant because you can't get rid of them, that's going to put you in a really bad spot. So depending on your strategy, you've got to pick your market right. And that's why I sell my turnkey properties in Atlanta. It's for people that don't necessarily live in Atlanta. They want to get good, safe returns. They don't want to have to deal with tenants and toilets, but they want to create passive income. My teams do all the work. And so it doesn't matter where you live. So that's for buying and holding. If you're wholesaling, close to home is often a good choice, as long as you can find opportunities, because you're probably most familiar with that market. You're going to know the neighborhoods. You're probably while you're driving around, you're going to see homes that look like they've maybe been neglected. Those are great candidates. Those are people in trouble. Once again, we're always looking for people with a problem to solve, and that's how we get paid. So depending on your strategy, you may want to invest close to home, or you may want to avoid, like the plague, investing close to home, depending on what it is that you're trying to do. So in terms of buying and holding, once again, absolutely love Atlanta. It's my top market. But I'd be looking at, hey, what markets are people moving to? Maybe if you live in California, for example, you might be seeing a lot of your friends going to certain places. And the trend I'm seeing, like I said, is Texas, Idaho, which I would have never suspected, like leaving the ocean to Idaho. Nothing against people in Idaho, by the way. And you have amazing potatoes, but leaving the ocean, I'm an ocean baby. I'm a water baby. So for me, it's like I couldn't leave the ocean to go. Anyway, I'm off on a different tangent, but see where people are going to. That if you see a trend, that's probably where you want to start investing. That's a path of progress. And then depending on what your resources are, that's also going to determine what strategy and what market you're going to be in. If you don't have very much money and you're trying to flip a home in California, good luck. You're going to need a lot of cash just to get the property, and the repairs are going to be expensive. And it's going to be a lot tougher than if you had if you had a very small amount of money. These tax deed auctions, I was just talking about the tax deed auction. I've had students that I've taught get properties, single family homes, for like $7,000 and that were worth $90,000. And I've had students pick up vacant pieces of land for $500 and go sell it to a builder for $8,000 and $9,000. And so your resources will also determine what strategies you can do, what markets you can do. And that by the way, those are in Harris County, which is the greater Houston, Texas area. So if I was looking to do tax deed auctions, that's exactly where I would do them. If I'm looking to do wholesaling, you can do that anywhere. If you're even in California where it's expensive, you can find a good deal. As long as you can find a buyer for it, you're laughing. And so you probably want to go to centers that have at least a moderate sized population. You probably don't want to go to some little town with like 30 people to try to do a flip or a wholesale deal. So your strategy, your resources, that's going to determine where you do your business. And don't invest close to home just because it's convenient. Make sure if you're investing close to home, it's a good strategy in the market that you're in. Great question, Jason.
No, that's a great point, Mike. And what I also want to see, where do you see the markets like people leave it and go into, like you mentioned, Atlanta, Florida, Texas, Nevada, Arizona, all friendly states that have no state income tax. So where do you see the trend? Like what resources should people use to track the trends of where people are leaving, like California, New York, or Massachusetts even, and go into markets like Nevada, like Arizona, like Texas and Florida and Atlanta that have no state income tax. I'm not sure if actually Atlanta does. You can tell me. Does Atlanta have state income tax?
It does. Georgia does have a state income tax, but the cost of living is very, very low there, and the property taxes are very low. So when you add it up, it's a very affordable place to live. So once again, I'm always looking at where are the jobs being created. So if you see that, Amazon is building a new, plant somewhere or whatever, warehouse somewhere, those are things you want to look at. Where are the jobs being created? Where are people moving to? And I always like to go to cities that are diverse. So once again, let's go back to Atlanta. Head office, Coca-Cola, Home Depot, Delta Airlines. So right now, we all know that Delta Airlines, all the airlines are going to be struggling. And Delta actually just not too long ago laid off a bunch of people. So if your tenant happened to be working for Delta, well, guess what? Now they can go work for Coca-Cola or one of these other hundreds of companies that are there. Now, if we contrast that with, I'm going to pick on Detroit for a second. That's the automotive industry. And unless Detroit reinvents itself, we're going to see that population continuing probably to shrink. The in the middle of what's going on right now, in the middle of a pandemic, not that many people are saying, you know what, I think I'm going to go buy a brand new car today. Car sales are probably going to go down considerably. And then on top of that, the future of automobiles is more like Uber and Apple. It's more becoming a tech play. It's not GM and Ford and Chrysler. So if somebody's working, if you have property in Detroit and your tenant is working at the assembly line for Ford and Ford lays them off, they're probably not going to GM. That whole industry is in trouble. So you want to go somewhere with multiple industries. You don't want to go somewhere where it's just, all one business. And the thing I love about Atlanta, on top of all the businesses, I mean, they're just, to me, Georgia is really smart how they deal with, and I know a lot of people might not like that they give, these big businesses incentives, but they're creating a lot of jobs. And so right now, Atlanta has become kind of Hollywood East in terms of there's a lot of films being shot there, a lot of TV shows. So they're, even though it's already got tons of industry, they're adding even more. More things are coming in there. And so once again, not judging, but what I'm saying is, as a real estate investor, if I know that there's going to be a whole bunch of jobs and a whole bunch of people moving there, and I know that I'm going to be able to get tenants. I know there's going to be upward momentum on my rents. There's going to be upward momentum on the appreciation in the real estate market. Those are things you want to look for. And the good news is, to answer the rest of your question, we live in the best times ever to be real estate investors and entrepreneurs in general, because everything we need to know is pretty much online. I mean, go on Google, you can find out the numbers. Hey, look at the population. Is it going down? Is it going up? And you want to be in places that are going up. If a whole bunch of people are leaving, you probably don't want to start investing there. So those are things you want to look for. Another really cool thing you can do, U-Haul actually publishes, how many people are moving from this place to this place. And what you'll see is there certain places it's very, very cheap to get a U-Haul. If you want to take it from, let's say you wanted to take it from probably, and I'm just making this up here, but I'm guessing if somebody was trying to go from Atlanta to New York City, that might be very cheap because they're trying to get their U-Hauls back there. And places that a lot of people are moving to, they tend to be very expensive because they don't want you to, they want to keep their U-Hauls in places where there's the most demand and people renting them. So that's available online as well. But we live in great times to check out job growth and population growth, and it's all right there at our fingertips. And so those are things you want to look out for, but you also want to keep an eye on the trends with COVID. For example, if we get another wave and it hits one part of the country really, really bad, there's a whole bunch of people, losing their jobs. Those are places that you might want to get in and get out of really, really quickly. You might be able to do flips or wholesale deals as there's people in trouble. But you want to keep an eye on those different things because that will really affect the markets. And there could be, new spots that don't make sense right now that 6 months from now make a ton of sense, just depending on what happens. There's so much up in the air right now.
No, that's a good point, Mike. One of the things I want to ask you, obviously you're big on Atlanta and that's your number one market, but what would you say is the second and third market that's having job growth right now besides Atlanta that people should look at the moment?
Yeah, one of the other markets that I like, Kansas City on the Missouri side, because Kansas City is divided up, parts in Missouri, part is in Kansas. The laws in Missouri are much more favorable for landlords. So if you're buying to hold, it's an affordable market. There's different types of markets. There's what we call trophy markets. Trophy markets are places like Las Vegas and Phoenix and Orlando. These are places that people tend to vacation to, and it's on their radar, not for any business reason, doesn't make sense for any other reason other than the fact that there's an emotional attachment to those markets. Those markets fluctuate the most. They go up really quick, they drop really quick. They're roller coaster rides. Then we have markets like Atlanta, and those are what I call business savvy markets where people are buying because for fundamentals. There's good fundamentals there. There's jobs being created, people moving there, population growth. And then there's what I call the lagging markets. And Kansas City is one of those. And what I mean by that, it's just it's a really nice city, not weather-wise in the winter, by the way, but really nice city. There are jobs being created there. It's if you were to throw a dart at a map of the US and hit the bullseye, that's Kansas City. It's right in the middle of the country. So it's great for distribution. If you're Walmart, you want to just distribute your stuff across the country, you want to be in the middle. And so there's always jobs being created there. It's very affordable, but there's not massive growth. There's not a whole ton of people moving there. So it's one of those really slow and steady markets. But when you start to find that all the markets around it, once they start to get expensive, people will go to places that are affordable and where there's jobs. And I think Kansas City may really benefit from this. So I like that market. I like a lot of Texas just because they're experiencing a ton of growth from a lot of Californians going there for the no income tax. But be careful, because if you're buying and holding properties there, the downside to it is they charge really high property taxes. And in places like Houston, the insurance is very high because they get floods and hurricanes. And so, which is why I'm doing my buy and holds in Atlanta. That's why I do my turnkey in Atlanta, because the property taxes are around 1.25% in Atlanta. In Texas are more like 2.63%. Something that I pay $400 to insure in Atlanta is like $1,200 in Houston. So those are things that you want to look at. You want to look at not only how much am I going to get, how much am I going to make, but more importantly, how much am I going to keep? So you want to, and then of course the other trends we're seeing, the baby boomers. That was happening even if COVID never happened. That's creating a whole different trend in itself, and we're basically seeing people moving from the north and they're heading south. That's a trend, and so those are things you want to keep in mind. And a lot of people get really, they get enticed by these really inexpensive markets like Detroit and Buffalo, New York, and there's some markets that are very, very cheap, but they're probably not going to see a lot of appreciation, unless something major happens where people start going that direction. But in general, people are heading south. They're heading to warmer places. But once again, COVID's a wild card that could create some new trends that we haven't even seen yet. I mean, COVID could be the tip of the iceberg, or who knows? There could be a vaccine and gone, and who knows? We don't know, and that's a wild card. So what opportunities will it create? That's what we've got to watch for.
No, that's a good point, Mike. Sorry. One of the things too you got to look at as far as COVID, they just announced that the vaccine will probably come out in the second quarter. So realistically, it won't be distributed probably to the mass public to the quarter. So we probably still have to the summer, at least early fall, before like the fourth quarter of next year, before we really get back to some semblance of normal. And one of the things you brought up, a very good point, is you mentioned like market style swing markets like Vegas, Phoenix, Orlando. They have huge swings. I know, because when I lived in Vegas and when I first got there, it depreciated like 70%. So if someone's invested in those swing markets, what would your advice be? What would you look at to see it's the right time to invest there based on the fundamentals, not because it's Vegas, Phoenix, Arizona, but based on if the fundamentals make sense? What would you tell investors out there in our audience?
Well, you have to be really, really careful when you get into those kind of markets. And I used to live in Vegas. I used to do a lot of foreclosures there, and it's a very transient city. So if you're getting tenants, they come. A lot of people move there thinking, oh, so much fun. I love Vegas. I want to live there. And then they move there and they realize that it's a lot more fun when you go there for the weekend. When you go there and when you live there, if you have the same habits that you do when you're there for the weekend, you're going to be in really big trouble financially and probably health-wise. So, so people come and go. Vegas tends to, get people excited. It chews them up and spits them back out. And I've seen a lot of people go there and they couldn't live there for an extended. I'm not saying everybody's like that, but that's just a trend that I noticed. But to answer your question, you have to really time that right. I'd recommend, depending on what your strategy is, always try to have two exit strategies. So if your goal is to flip and you get stuck with a property and then the market happens to take a nosedive and you're stuck with this property, make sure that it makes sense from a buy and hold perspective, and that you're in a position where you can afford to hold on to it if that were to happen. And so when you have these trophy markets, they are going to do those wild swings. You can really benefit from it, or you can really lose your shirt because of it, depending on how you play that. So having multiple strategies is important. I'm personally not investing in Vegas at the moment, but it's something I'm watching. If that market were to take a really big nosedive, that's a market that will always come back. And same with Phoenix, same thing. Back when I was investing there, 2008, 2009, you're getting phenomenal deals. Now it's a lot tougher. Now we are seeing Californians moving there, but they've been doing that for a while, and so there's not really that much value in those markets at the moment. So these are things you want to watch for, though, because those are the markets that if you can get them, if you can get in there while things are low, they'll bounce back. Those markets will always keep coming back as people, it's on everybody's radar, and not just within the United States, but all over the world. And I'm Canadian, as you know, I do all my investing in the US, but I'm originally from Canada. And in Western Canada, everybody wants to be in Scottsdale in the winter. And in Eastern Canada, everybody wants to be in South Florida in the winter. And so, a lot of Canadians, for example, and a lot of foreigners, Europeans, people all over the world, these are the markets that they understand. And this is the stuff that they see. They don't know about the Kansas cities. They don't know about the Atlantas. That's foreign to them, but everybody knows about Disney World. Everybody knows about Las Vegas. So that's on a lot of people's radar. And as a result, there are opportunities to get in on, those bounces if you can time it right. But something to keep an eye on right now. I'm not personally jumping into any of those at the moment. I'm still in the I like the fundamental markets because they always make sense. They always give me great returns when I'm buying and holding. And those are the markets that are going to have some really slow, steady, maybe not even slow. They're going to have steady appreciation as more and more people move to them. So those are things you want to watch for.
No, that's a good point too. I mean, I lived in Vegas for 9 years. I know it's once you get by like 5 years or so, you realize it as just a regular town that you can have entertainment options and stuff. It's great for certain things like events in your industry. But you are right. If you go in with the same habits as you go in there over a weekend, you won't last very long. So that's really the key. It's called discipline. It's where anywhere else, because there's always other places that have entertainment stuff, and you just have to be prepared. But getting back to the real estate and the fundamentals, really, and I think you do a great job on that, and really telling people, hey, these are the fundamentals. Right now, Vegas is a little hot, even with the pandemic, but I bet you it will come down. And when it comes down, that's when you look at the fundamentals that make sense to invest based on the numbers, not based on the market name or you love the neighborhood. It's basically, can you make money and can you make profit on it? So right now you're saying Atlanta, Kansas City, and then your third one, that was the what was your third?
Well, I like places like, I like Houston, Texas, because if I can get properties at the tax deed auctions, for example, if I get a property for $7,000 and maybe I'm paying more I'm paying more in taxes and more in insurance than I would somewhere else. Well, if I'm getting the property for $7,000, I can afford to pay more for that other stuff. So I like Houston because of those auctions. That's my main reason for really liking that market. But if you're paying retail to buy and hold, I wouldn't. If you're doing flips, though, it's a good market for flips because we have, like I said, we have that list of people in pre-foreclosure. So we can, like I said, do that trifecta where we approach them before the auction, try to create a win-win for them before the auction, go to the auction, another opportunity, and then doing the overages after the auction's over. And so I love that market because of that auction.
That's fantastic, Mike. I think that's some really great information for our audience and for everything that they're looking to accomplish. So that's all the questions I have, Mike. Does anyone else have questions for Mike Wolf? If you put them in the chat, let me check the chat. No, you put your information and questions.
Do you have
someone asked in the questions, can you repeat the link for the free seminar?
Just send me an email. It's in the chat box, info@mikewolfmastery.com. And just let me know you saw me on Jason's show, and I'll give you a free access to my webinar. And it explains, a little bit about things to look for when you go to these tax deed auctions so you don't lose your shirt.
No, that's fantastic. So thank you so much, Mike. You want to tell people about your event coming up? I know you have one coming up here in next week, actually.
Yeah, I do them every 90 days or so. So if you're watching this after I've already done the November 20th to 22nd event, it's November 20th to 22nd, 2020. If you're watching this after, I'm doing them a couple of times a year. But I'm doing a 3-day online training, and I'm teaching a lot of the stuff that we talked about today and a bunch of other strategies as well. I'm going to be teaching them in a lot more detail. And the first time I did it, normally when there's no COVID, I'm pretty much retired. I do maybe 1 or 2 events live and in person, 1 or 2 a year. And then, of course, this year I'm not doing anything live and in person, but I am using Zoom. And the first time I did a Zoom event, we charged $997 for the 3-day training, and got really, really good feedback. But a few people said to me, "Hey, well, I just lost my job. I wish I really need to reinvent myself. I want to learn from you." But $997 is a lot of money right now. And so I decided that this time we're going to reduce it. It's only $97 for all 3 days. And I'm going to be going into a lot more detail. So some of the stuff that I taught you here, I'm going to teach you, how do you find these, just, other ways to find these distress sellers, how to have them calling you, how to use social media, things like that, how to do wholesaling properly, how to do the contracts, how to do subject to investing. There's a whole bunch of different strategies. And so I'm going to be spending 3 days teaching all of them in detail, because like I said, my mission for this year is to train as many people as possible on how to ethically invest, how to help other people create win-wins, and make money for yourself. So $97, we're going to spend 3 days together online. And the next one's November 20th to 22nd. And I'd love to have your audience there. So I'm not sure if you have the link handy, Jason, you can put in the chat box. But if you don't,
Yes, you can put the link in the chat, Mike.
Okay, so let me actually get the link. Just 1 sec here. All right, 1 more second. There we go. So yeah, so it's in the chat box. If you're not watching this live and you don't have the chat box, if you go to mikeswealthmastery.com, you can sign up actually for a free ebook that I've got that talks about the top ways to make money in real estate right now, even during COVID times, even if you're locked down, which I hope you're not. And then once you click to get that ebook, you can also it'll ask if you want to sign up for my 3-day event. It'll give you the dates to whatever the next one is to sign up. And love to have you all there. So can't wait to work with as many people as possible and teach them how to do investing ethically and profitably and safely.
Thank you so much, Mike. You did a great job today at the High Performance Summit. So you want to definitely reach out to Mike and sign up for his event. Also, Mike offered the free webinar too. So if you just reach out to the contact information, Mike will do that. I want to thank you again, Mike, for giving some great strategies at High Performance Summit today. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Jason. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too, Mike. Have a great to be Brad Blazar. And let me tell you about Brad. Brad is a raising capital expert that has raised over $2 billion in capital for real estate business projects. He's a business coach. He has the #2 rated podcast in Yahoo Finance. He has a best-selling book, Wings of the Eagle. Brad is also, in today's we're talking about how to connect with high net worth investors to fund your real estate projects, business, special projects. I want to welcome Brad Blazar to the High Performance Summit.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing today? It's good to see everybody here. Welcome, Jason. Thanks once again for having me on as a guest today. For those of you that joined us yesterday, my name is Brad Blazar. And I have a podcast, as Jason mentioned, called Beast Nation, where we really bring on key experts that talk about business, that talk about mindset, that talk about ways to actually increase your business, where you can see anywhere from 30 to 100% increase in sales, profitability, revenue, many other exciting things like that. But really what I want to focus on today is something that I consider to be my primary hard skill, when people ask me really what I am an expert at, it's raising capital. It's understanding how to use other people's money to build wealth. You see, most people out there have an ambition, have a goal, have a dream. They're investing in real estate. Maybe they're doing single family where they're wholesaling or they're flipping, or they want to scale and get out of single family and do something bigger like multifamily. But what they quickly realize is you need money to make money. And without money, or at least without access to money, you're stuck. And I learned at a very, very early age, at the age of 23, when I launched my oil company, how to properly ask for money, how to use money, and more importantly, how to get money. And so today, for roughly the next hour, what I want to really focus on is teaching you some of the secrets of how you can put together a fund, or how you can go out to high net worth accredited investors and get the money that you need to start doing bigger deals. Whether it's buying a business, whether it's scaling a business, maybe you want to just build a business, you need money. If you want to invest in real estate, or you want to do something bigger in life than what you're capable of doing on your own, again, you need money. And so what I'm going to do here this morning is I'm going to share my screen with all of you, and then basically open up a presentation here where we can all get started and all get going. But like I said, today, what I really want to focus on is how to raise investor capital, how you can use other people's money basically to buy, build, or scale a business or fund a project without having a track record or prior experience. And that's the key. I want to dispel a big misconception and a big false belief. You see, I started my oil company, folks, at the age of 23, and I didn't have any prior background or experience. I did not know how to build a company. I quickly learned, but don't let your age, don't let your lack of experience, don't lack a lack of performance be a deterrent in getting capital, because it certainly does not have to be. So my goal for you today, like I said, folks, is I want to share with you some of the key ingredients that I have literally used over my career to raise millions of dollars in investor capital, to fund my own projects in real estate primarily, and also how I've helped raise money to fund the projects of other people. Now, my special gift, if you stay to the end, is I'm going to give all of you something that I call the 4-step sales blueprint. This is the secret that I've actually used to raise millions of dollars. I've shared this with dozens of other people in my coaching and training, and many of my former students, folks, are raising hundreds of thousands. Some of them are raising a few $1,000,000 using exactly what I'm going to make available to you later today. The great thing about this is anybody can do it. And I'm also going to add in a few other surprises as well. So what makes this different than anything else out there? Well, first of all, this will work for almost anybody, folks. I mean, how could I, as a 23-year-old kid that literally dropped out of college, right, without a college degree, without a track record, literally raise millions of dollars using the same skills you're going to learn today? You don't need a track record. You don't need prior performance. You don't need any experience in raising money. And if you take what I'm going to share with you and what I'm going to give you today, you can literally raise hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And here's the secret. You don't need to spend lots of money in order to do this. But the big thing that I want you to remember in today's session is it's not just the skill set. It's the mindset. You have to come prepared, folks, with the right mindset in order to be successful to do this. And I'm going to touch upon that here in just a little bit. Lastly, you're also going to learn exactly what you need in order to be successfully prepared so that when you go to investors or when you approach people, you look professional and you dramatically increase your chances of success. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. Jason did a great job of introducing me, but I want to just kind of expand on that a little bit. Over the course of my career, I've successfully raised in excess of $2 billion, primarily from high net worth investors, but also from family offices, large advisory firms, putting together syndicated funds with broker dealers. I started an oil company at the age of 23, and I successfully built that platform to where we had 35 employees. We had drilling programs going on in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, raising millions of dollars a month. And today, if you fast forward, what I do primarily is I consult entrepreneurs and business owners from all over the world on how to raise capital, how to access capital, how to put together funds, along with a number of other things. In addition, I've also closed the largest deals for multiple companies where the commissions alone on these transactions were at or very close to six figures. For US Allianz, which is, I believe, the number one or number two largest financial services company in the world today, closed the largest sale in the history of the organization, $11 million transaction while I was working for them. Then for a company called SmartStop, which is a premier owner-operator of self-storage facilities around the country and up in Canada, $9 million, $7.5 million, $5 million while working for them. Company in Houston, Texas called Hartman, which is a large real estate investment trust that owns office buildings primarily throughout Texas, $2.5 million. And then, like Jason said, if you like podcasts and you like feeding your head with positive thoughts and learning from other people, I'm currently the host to the second highest ranked podcast in the world, according to Yahoo Finance and Yahoo News and the Wall Street Journal's Digital Virgin, Digital Journal. It's really the second highest ranked podcast to help people cope with COVID-19. And so if you go to Google and you just type in Yahoo Finance with the little plus sign, top five podcasts that help people cope with COVID, boom, you'll see it pop right up there. I've got two books. My number one book, On the Wings of Eagles, Learn to Soar in Life, was a number one top rated read for young entrepreneurs. And folks, I've been on some of the biggest business podcasts around the world, like Roland Fraser's Business Lunch, Joel Brown's Addicted to Success, that's listened to by over 100 million people, and a lot more. And really what I'm known as by a lot of these business people and leaders is the go-to guy for raising money. When people want to raise money to do something, they largely say, call Brad Blazar. He is known around the world as the go-to guy simply because he knows how to do it. He teaches you how to do it. And more importantly, he's raised over $2 billion. Over the course of my career, folks, I'll openly admit, and I'll be very transparent and honest, I've done a lot of things right, but I've also done a lot of things wrong. And when I do things wrong, I like to say it's expensive tuition because it costs money. Remember this, it costs money to make money. You cannot be bashful or scared about spending a little bit of money to learn something. Because if something doesn't work, that's okay. You've just learned one more way that it don't work so that you can get back on track and figure out a way that does. And after doing this for a long time and raising $2 billion, here's what I've learned. Anybody can do this. Anybody can successfully raise investor capital if you're properly prepared. And that's the secret. You have to be properly prepared. And I'm going to show you today exactly what I mean by that. The big thing that also I want to get across is investors really don't care about you as much as they care about the deal and the prospects of making money. You see, it's really from the investor's perspective, what's in it for me? And as long as you build trust and you build a relationship and you show them that, you're not a Bernie Madoff or you're not a crook, they'll invest. And the best part about it is you don't need to go to your family and friends. You don't need a Rolodex of rich people. You don't need to be a member of a country club to get started. But again, I stress there's definitely a right way of raising capital and there's definitely a wrong way of doing it. And I've coached hundreds of people that have tried it on their own. They've floundered. They've had very little success. And then once they enroll or once they talk to me, they get back on track and they find that exactly what we teach works. So folks, like I say, I discovered this the hard way after spending literally tens of thousands of dollars, countless hours, trial and error, doing events. The great part about it, because you're here, is you get the cheap. You get the easy way because someone's going to teach you how to do it. Now, the hard way is hosting expensive events that draw a lot of plate lickers. I cannot tell you how many people have invited me to come in and speak as a keynote to these big, expensive dinners they put on at fancy steak restaurants, big seafood restaurants, because they see everybody else doing that and they think that's the right way. But let me tell you, folks, what you end up with is a bunch of plate lickers and people that really are not interested at all in what you have to say or what you have to do. The other thing is not understanding what you really need in what I call an investor kit. Okay, an investor kit is really three things that you need to put together. Okay, we can show you and help you how to do that so that you make the best first impression you possibly can. And what that investor kit is made up of is a great PowerPoint presentation that incorporates a lot of slides and a lot of content and some beautiful pictures. You've got to have a one-pager that clearly communicates who you are, what you do, and talks a little bit about the investment itself. Okay. You also don't have to call on friends and family thinking they'll fund your deals. And I would recommend that if you're ever trying to raise money, that you never go there. And here's the reason why. God forbid, if the deal you're working on does not work out the way you intend it to, you certainly don't want to be in a position where you're losing the money of your friends and family, because I guarantee you're still going to want to show up at the holiday events and the holiday dinners, and you want to be able to walk in without having your tail tucked between your knees, if you know what I mean, folks. Don't go to venture capital, private equity firms, or other, quote, professional organizations that will finance, because it takes a long time. They've got extensive due diligence in place. They're going to ask for things like audited financials that most of you probably don't have. They only want to do business with well-vetted people that have extensive track records, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm going to show you today is a proven system. Here's the easy way, folks, that I use to build a multi-million-dollar oil company, literally raising tens of thousands of dollars initially and then scaling as I taught other people to where we ultimately got to a few $1,000,000 a month. And now what I want to do is teach you exactly how to do exactly the same thing. You see, in the last year, the last 12 months, I've personally consulted people all around the world. I get people in New Zealand, in Australia, in England, in Canada, as well as putting together my own $25 million fund to primarily go out and invest in multifamily. And I didn't have to spend a small fortune to do this. I didn't know any of the investors, as a matter of fact, prior to actually making contact with them. And I did absolutely none of this at all, spending a lot of money to do expensive events. As a matter of fact, I recommend to people, do not spend a lot of money doing these expensive events just because you see other people doing them or people tell you that's the right way. Because with over 25 years of experience, there is a better way to do it that costs a heck of a lot less money. Now, I want to just preface this. The results that I've seen, the results a lot of my students have seen, are not typical, because I'm going to walk you through the key ingredients today, and I'm going to share with you the 4-step sales process that literally is raising millions of dollars for a lot of people. Okay, but a lot of people are unwilling to back what I teach with action. That's the magic word here, folks. That's the secret. It's action. Whenever you come to an event like the one Jason's put together, where you're being taught something or you're hearing about something, you got to take action. You got to move forward. But I'm going to share with you today exactly how this works. Okay, this is not for people that want to get rich quick. It's not for people that expect huge overnight success, but if you apply what I teach you today and you back it with some action and you're willing to study it, I will literally guarantee results. I will guarantee your results because I have seen it work for so many people that we have trained and coached. So the 3 secrets to raising capital. Secret number 1, and I want to dispel the misconceptions, the self-doubt, and the limiting beliefs. Age, track record, prior performance does not matter. Anybody can do this. Matter of fact, I shared a story yesterday when I was in the oil business about Jack, who came to work for me. And the day he showed up, he was wearing jeans that had holes in the knees. He had a flannel shirt. He had shoes covered in dust and dirt, and mullet for a haircut, and big old Fu Manchu mustache. He looked like Joe Dirt, which was the fictional character in the movie, of course, with David Spade. And I taught that guy how to raise money. And in the first year, he raised me $25 million. And he personally made $250,000 in commission. The second secret, you can cultivate a high quality list of high net worth accredited investors that you can directly solicit for capital. You don't need to know anybody. A matter of fact, in the enrollment area in my program, I give you the contact information for a person that will sell you a list of accredited investors where you can get their names, their emails, their phone numbers, so that you can actually approach them once you know how to do this. And then secret number 3 is you can see results in literally as little as about 4 to 5 weeks rather than months using this program, and literally begin closing capital quickly, getting checks sent to you for $50,000, $100,000. This does not take a long time, folks. So if you have ambitions for investing in something like real estate or getting into multifamily, you can literally start seeing success with this in as little as 6 to 8 weeks, if not sooner, using what I'm going to teach you today. So let me talk to you a little bit about secret number 1. Your age, your track record, prior performance does not matter, folks. Anybody can do this. And like I explained, I started doing this in my 20s. I learned from experts that were in the oil and gas business that showed me how to utilize something called the 4-step sales blueprint, which takes place over 4 telephone calls with a prospective investor. It backs it with psychology, it backs it with right mindset, and it backs it with the right approach. And when done properly, it absolutely works like magic. Now, the beautiful thing about this, folks, is that when I scaled and I built my oil company, I had to teach other people how to do this, okay? And I started basically teaching a friend that ultimately came on, became my partner. We got to the point, man, where we had so many leads and we had so many referrals that we had to bring on other people. And so as this thing grew and grew, like I said earlier, it ultimately became a fairly sizable, medium-sized oil company, 35 employees, raising millions of dollars a month with drilling activity in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, projects. I was driving around in a beautiful sports car, had a nice house, living well, of course, until in the late 1980s, the Tax Reform Act changed the landscape and oil prices plummeted. And that's when we made the strategic decision to slowly dissolve the company until one day we no longer existed. And then I went back to work, basically just teaching other people and doing it for others, and have sourced over $2 billion and counting. Secret number 2, you can cultivate a list. The great thing about today, folks, with the recent changes in legislation through the Jobs Act, is you can leverage your social media. Maybe some of you are seeing other real estate entrepreneurs fishing or soliciting investors in places like Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn. The great thing is you can do that. We teach you how to do that so that you can actually not only have a list, but you can also utilize your social media presence to actually get leads of people that have an interest in what it is you're doing or that want to follow you and engage with you. because they see that you're successful and that you're doing something. Money follows motion. And as long as you're in motion and you're doing something that other people perceive to be successful, they're going to want to follow you. Now, here's another secret tied to secret number 2. There are 3 reasons most people, including me, should not waste their money on these big outings, okay? Number 1 is they're expensive as hell. You know, if you're going to treat, let's say, 35 to 50 people to a nice dinner at a fancy restaurant that includes some alcohol like wine or whatever, you know, it's expensive and costly. Many of you here on this summit today don't have thousands of dollars to invest yet. You may if you utilize what I'm going to teach you, but like I said, you don't want to be doing something for plate lickers and unqualified prospects. You want to be getting in front of people that have an interest. And here's the big secret. Serious money, serious investors don't care about these events, okay? They can go out and get their own nice dinner. And that's, again, why you get a bunch of plate lickers. The other thing is there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. And it takes a tremendous amount of time to plan, to send out invitations, to, you know, remind everybody who's RSVP'd, et cetera, et cetera. Don't waste your time doing these things, folks, because I'm going to show you today a much, much easier way to do it. I want to talk to you before we get started about what I call the experiment that failed. Many years ago, I was interviewing with a very big, well-known, established financial services firm that managed about $16 billion. They were located up in New York, you know, right in the financial services district. They managed money and wealth for some of the richest families around the United States. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to create a real estate division within the company to offer real estate investments to their client base. And so they put together a $50 million fund with the idea of raising $50 million to invest in real estate. And what they did was right. They hired a very senior executive in the real estate business that knew real estate inside out, upside down, real estate expert. But the key is this real estate expert knew nothing about raising money. And so as I was talking to the CEO about coming on board, he said, Brad, we're having this big event in Houston, Texas, right there in your city where you live. It's at a beautiful steak restaurant called Sullivan's. Do you know where it is? And I said, sure. He said, well, why don't you go there and attend? You'll hear the whole presentation. You'll meet Joe, the real estate guy that we brought on to run this division. He'll be your colleague. You'll be working real closely next to each other. And I said, I'd love to. So I drove one night down to this wonderful, beautiful restaurant in Houston, and I showed up about 30 minutes early just so I could help set up and introduce myself before all of the people showed up, and walked into this beautiful room with a screen and a LCD projector and place settings for about 35, 40 people around the table. And 7:30 rolled around and nobody had showed. And I look at my watch and I say, Joe, we can't blame it on the rainy weather because it ain't raining. And we gave it another 10 minutes. Again, nobody showed. Now, these people had committed thousands of dollars to a restaurant to serve meals for 40 people. The place was set up. And literally that night, folks, nobody other than me showed up at this event. They had no idea how to organize anything like this properly. And I looked at Joe and I said, you guys really need help raising money. He said, to be honest, Brad, we have no idea what we're doing. We thought this would work. We sent out invitations. And as you can see, it's failed miserably. So I ultimately came on board as the executive vice president running the capital division. And in 10 months, we closed out a $50 million offering, doing it the right way. So there's the old model, which I just shared with you, okay? Spending money, invitations going out, getting RSVPs, but not really following up with people, and nobody shows up. The new model, which we used, which worked, was we acquired a high net worth investor list. And we use the 4-step sales blueprint that you're going to learn and hear about today to contact and build trust and build rapport and teach salespeople how to close. And the results, folks, like I said, is the sales team made roughly 30 to 40 calls a day to investors off this list. The very first round of money, the first investors literally closed in just 3 weeks after we started this process. And in 6 weeks, we'd raised $1 million. We hired a couple more people where we were now raising close to $1 million, and then it grew to about $1 million, $2 million a month. And like I said, folks, we closed this offering out. Now, secret number 3 is you can see results with this very, very quickly. It doesn't take a long time for this to work. And the beautiful part about this is you can get started right away. See, the old school that a lot of people think they need to do is you go to venture capital firms, you go to family offices, you go to, private angel groups. And what are they going to ask for? Do you have any audited financials? Do you have a very, very complete due diligence package? How much have you raised before? What's your track record? Because they only want to work with well-established firms that really don't need their money, but they choose to partner with people. The new school is work high net worth investors using this proven approach. Start seeing capital. Start learning how you can utilize things like the crowdfunding platforms to get your deal onto a crowdfunding platform like Realty Mogul or Fundrise or CrowdStreet or any of the others that we teach you how to do, so that now you're leveraging an audience of millions of investors around the world. Takes a lot of the burden off you. But if you supplement that with what we teach, then I guarantee success, because now you're casting many nets out for the investor capital that you ultimately are going to need. Now, this process that we want to learn today is called the 4-step sales blueprint, okay? And it's really built around just 4 telephone calls. The very first call is what we call the initial contact call. Now imagine you've spent a couple $100. You've now got a list of wealthy, affluent people, their name, their address, their email, their telephone numbers. And all you're going to do is you're going to have yourself, or you're going to have maybe a person that works alongside you, reach out to establish contact. And it's simply a phone call. Hey, Mr. Burke, this is Brad Blazar calling with 5 Star Capital. We're a real estate investment firm based out of Houston. I just want to give you a shout out today to see if you have an interest in real estate. Now, here's the thing. 9 out of 10 times, the person that you're calling is going to say, I'm not interested. And you have to, like I said, have the mindset, the knowledge. It's like when you walk into a store and that clerk walks up to you and says, hi, can I help you today? What do most everybody say back? No, thank you. I'm just looking. Okay. So if you expect the objection, which is really a smokescreen, and you're very quick with your scripted response, which we're going to teach you, kind of like sticking your foot in the door, you'll be able to get the person to open up and start talking before they actually hang up the phone. And so as an example, when Mr. Burke says, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not interested, you very quickly say, I certainly understand, sir. Thank you so much. Let me just ask you, was the reason you're not interested because you had invested in real estate sometime before and it simply didn't work out the way that it was intended to? And then they're going to obviously answer. And then you come right back with another question. And before you know it, somebody that was not interested has spent 20 minutes talking to you because you answered questions properly. And one of the things that you have to understand about raising money is the second you come across to the prospect like somebody that needs it, they're going to run in the other direction. Successful people only want to do business with other people who they perceive to be equally as successful. So in the first 2 calls in this process, we teach people that you're not going to pitch, you're not going to sell. What you're going to do is you're going to build scarcity in what it is you have, and you're going to tell the prospect that they may never have the opportunity to invest with you because the existing investors you work with always have the first right of refusal on every ensuing deal you do. And so, as you're wrapping up this first call, you say, hey, Mr. Burke, great talking to you today. What I'd love to do is send you some information on who we are and what we do, and just follow up in a week or so to make sure you got it and answer any questions you might have. Would that be okay? Great. And so we like to put it in the mail and send it so that they have something tangible that they can actually feel and touch, because our materials are very high quality and it makes a wonderful first impression. Many people send it digitally via an email, or send a link to something like a Dropbox or a data room. That's fine too. But here's the key. After that first call, you want to schedule a follow-up call about 8 to 10 days later, okay? But between the first call and the second call, I like to create what I call a non-linear follow-up. And here's the thing, folks, in sales, there are two types of follow-ups. There are linear, which is a phone call or a meeting. And then there's non-linear, that's sending an email and directing attention to something else. It's sending third-party credibility. So after that first call, but before the second, what I might do is send an email to Mr. Burke and say, hey, Mr. Burke, this article that speaks to the tax benefits in real estate is something I thought might be of interest to you, because now I'm leading with value. I want to send him something that's related and relative to what we're discussing, so I can educate, add value, and once again, build on that relationship. Okay. Now, 8 to 10 days later, we're scheduling call number 2. Hey, Mr. Burke, Brad Blazar again, buddy, with 5 Star Capital. How's the weather up there in Boston? I imagine it's getting cold. Great. Spend about 3 minutes just reconnecting, building that relationship back up, asking if they've done anything exciting or interesting. But obviously, you're going to pivot right back to, the reason you're calling. Hey, I just wanted to touch base, make sure you received the package and the information I'd sent out your way. And again, folks, expect it. Yes, I got it, but I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, right? That's what they're going to say 9 out of 10 times. But if you expect it and you're taught and you're trained and you know what to say, you can say, I certainly understand, both of us are very busy professionals. I'll tell you what, Mr. Burke, if you have access to it or it's someplace handy, there's 2 pages in there I'd really love to call your attention to. Can you go get it? I'm willing to wait. And then you stop talking while they go get it. You see what I just did? Now he brings the package or he pulls up the email, and then you call his attention to a couple of things that you want to point out. You start asking some more questions. You start building on that relationship, because you're building trust. People will never invest with people they don't trust. Okay. And here's the key. You're probably the first salesperson that has ever called this man or woman that has never tried to sell them anything on the first or second call. You see how that builds the trust? You're not asking for their money. And towards the end of the conversation, you want to reiterate again on the second call, Mr. Burke, it's very rare that we ever have an opportunity for people to come on board and invest alongside us, because we always give our existing investors the right for first refusal on our ensuing offerings. But if I have an opening on a future project or program, would you like me to get back in touch? Sure. They always say sure. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've never had anybody say no. And so you say, great, wonderful chatting with you. Be safe, be well, and hopefully I'll be in touch with you sometime soon. And then again, 8 to 10 days later, call 3. Call 3 is now where you're actually presenting. You're talking about investing with you, what it is you're doing. You've got your kit, you're ready to go. But again, it's mindset. You have to have the mindset that you're doing the person a favor. You're not begging. You're not coming across overly desperate. And all you do is you say, hey, Mr. Burke, Brad Blazar again, 5 Star Capital, after a couple of minutes of chit chat, just wanted to give you a call. You asked me to put your name on my list. And so I'm going down my list this afternoon. It just so happens we have a very small allocation in what it is we're doing. And I'd love to tell you about it. We're buying a 132 unit apartment building in Naples, Florida. It's at 96% occupancy. It's a beautiful property right by the ocean. You know, you go through the deal and you say, you know, does this sound like something that you have an interest in taking a look at? Great. If it is, you send now the whole kit. You send your PowerPoint, you send the offering memorandum, you send the one pager so that they can look at it and review it and hopefully make a decision to invest with you. And then 8 to 10 days later, you're calling back to go through the materials, to answer any questions, to basically overcome any objections, to respond to any thoughts or things that they have. And then hopefully, of course, you're closing and you're getting a check in the mail for $25,000, $50,000, $100,000. Now on call number 4, you have to be of the mindset that some will, some won't. So what? Some people are waiting. You're doing a favor to this person that you've built trust in a relationship in. But you also have to know how to properly close. You have to know how to ask for the order. And we train and we teach you on that as well. You see, when I was in the oil business, I had a very wealthy, very rich doctor that for some reason just would not invest with us. And I think it was because he knew that there was the risk of physically drilling a dry hole and losing his entire investment. Okay. Now, one night as I was talking to him, I said, doctor, it takes 2 things to invest in an oil well. And he said, what? And I said, it just takes big balls and lots of money. Which of the 2 don't you have? And after about 30 seconds, he said, tell me again how much 3 units in your program cost, Brad. And I said, go get your checkbook, doctor. Welcome aboard. That's the attitude you have to have, folks. Now, I apologize if I offended any ladies on the call, but it's the closer's mindset. It's bringing tension and speaking to someone that might be worth $3 million or $5 million, just like they would speak to one of their buddies, or just like they would speak to one of their colleagues. You see, they don't want to be talked up to. They don't want to be buttered up. They want to be treated as somebody that you're an equal. You know, you're J.R. Ewing or you're, you know, some big real estate entrepreneur that they perceive to be successful, that they want to lend their capital to. And if you have that mindset and you have the tools, you can raise millions and millions of dollars, folks. Imagine getting access to the hundreds of thousands, or better yet, the millions of dollars that you desire, that you need to buy, build, or scale your business, or fund a special project. Let me ask you this, folks. If you could get access to money, other people's money, to do something big, like start a business, build a business, invest in a property that's much larger than single family, that really, by investing in it, is a game changer, will change your life. How would that change your life? Okay. How would that change things for you? Now, in the last roughly, 40 minutes, I've shared a lot of information. Okay. Wouldn't you agree? It's been time well spent so far. But here's the secret. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've coached dozens of people on how to raise hundreds, millions of dollars. And I can't cover everything you need in an hour webinar. I couldn't cover it even if I had all day, because I could teach you about crowdfunding. I could teach you about the different types of securities regulations, like what's a Reg A deal? Do you want to use that approach? What's a Reg D 506B, where you can use non-accredited? I mean, I can teach you so much. So I want to make a special offer so you can get everything you need to know. And I'm going to make this offer special. And here's the key. Because Jason's invited me to the High Performance Success Summit, if you're willing to act fast, I'm also going to give you a very, very special deal. As I like to say, folks, old habits die hard. It's like the event that I told you about earlier, where this multi-billion-dollar company thought they knew what they were doing. They spent thousands of dollars to host a high-end event, and they had 0 results. I've literally worked with tons of people that have tried whatever approach it was they were using, and they were floundering. They were not raising the money that they were trying to get. And here's the worst part about it. In real estate, once you put a property under contract and you go hard on the deal where you're opening title and you're writing a check or you're funding escrow, you've got money and you've got time working against you. The last thing you ever want to be in is a position where you cannot successfully source or get your hands on the capital, because then the deal ain't going to close. And then, of course, the sellers start getting cold feet. So old habits do die hard. But what you're going to get if you decide to work together and you actually want to move forward with us to learn how to do this is we're going to give you the 4-step sales blueprint, which basically is a blueprint. It's a script that walks you through each one of these 4 telephone calls, gives you the mindset, tells you why you say it and what you say. Now, if I were to sell this just separately, put it on the internet and say, hey, get Brad Blazar's 4-step sales blueprint, folks. This is how he's raised millions, which I've done. That's $1,497 value right there. But here's the secret. I'm also going to give to you what I call the offering memorandum template. You see, when you're raising money, you need to come prepared. And if you go to a law firm or a securities attorney and say, hey, I'd like to raise money to buy an apartment building, can you put together an offering circular for us to do that? They'll say, sure. And I guarantee you're going to be looking at a retainer of $20,000, $25,000, $30,000, if not more. What we do in our training course is we give you that template and we teach you how to use that so you can prepare your own offering document that is compliant, that has been prepared by some of the biggest securities attorney firms in the country. And then if you want to, you can go to a friendly attorney and say, hey, we've created an offering circular to raise capital. Can you review it for us, please? It's going to be a lot less expensive than paying him to create it from scratch. Then I'm also going to give you access to my ebook, How to Use Crowdfunding, how to use these platforms. We have a whole course on that where I give you the list of all of these different crowdfunding sites. Again, if I were to sell that just retail, $1,297 value. I'm going to show you and actually give you the name of a person where you can pick up the phone and buy a list of high net worth accredited investors. That is a $997 value. And then I'm also going to give you my ebook called The 9 Truths to Raising Capital that dispels a lot of these misconceptions and, more importantly, shares things that my former colleagues and people that are in the industry don't want you to know. So here's the deal. If I were to sell all of this separately, you're looking at a bundle that's valued at roughly $9,000, okay? But I want to tell you who this has worked for. This has worked for people that are real estate investors that are trying to raise capital to do deals. Maybe you just want to start doing some single family rehabs. You need money to rehab, right? You need money to go in and fix the kitchens and fix the bathrooms and to landscape. You need money. This has also worked for the business owner that's looking to acquire a new business or that wants to buy a business so they can scale, so they can 10X. This also works for somebody that wants to capitalize on a new idea, or better yet, start a business. They don't own one yet. They see one that they'd like to buy. They're talking to the seller. They need a couple $1 million to buy it. Where are you going to get it? Investors, folks. And that's exactly what I want to teach everybody how to do. Now, I'm going to be transparent. I had 2 choices. I sat down with my team and I said, look, guys, I can go as cheap as possible to try to sell as many of these as possible to people that are going to be at Jason Summit. But here's the unfortunate thing. It would not have incentivized me to really stack the value and put as much in there as I could to give you to ensure your success. So the second option for those people that are really serious about this requires a little bit higher investment, but in exchange, I can devote my time, my team's time, give you a lot more resources to really guarantee your success if this is something you want to learn how to do. So what you're going to get again is the 4-step sales blueprint. Okay. It's a 8-page script, goes into the mindset, teaches you what to say. We're going to give you the offering memorandum template that shows you how to create your own offering memorandum. Okay. 140-page document with all the disclaimers, all the things you need, the operating agreements, the subscription agreements. That right there is a $3,500 value. Going to give you the ebook on crowdfunding. It's $1,297. Going to tell you exactly where to go to get your high net worth accredited investor list. Going to give you the ebook on dispelling the myths of raising capital. Again, the value $8,786. And I'm going to give you a bonus. Gets even better, folks. I'm going to give you the secrets I've used to get into family offices. Now, family offices are offices that have an investment team that manage the wealth of that family. Okay, think about families like the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, right? All of these rich people, Bill Gates Foundation, right? Warren Buffett, they all have what we call a family office. We're going to give you the lists to those family offices and teach you the secrets of how to get in, how to get them to write you checks for $1 million, $5 million, because that's what I've done over the course of my 25-year career. I'm also going to give you another bonus because you're here today. Some of you may have a goal, a vision, a dream of getting into the big leagues, really putting together a fund in a couple of years where you can raise $50 million or $100 million and put together a portfolio. To do that, you need to do something that I've already done, and that is you have to build what we call a syndicate of broker dealers. You have to get broker dealers together so that their financial advisors, their stockbrokers, their registered reps are sharing your investment with clients of their firm. That's what we call putting together a selling group. And this is how some people are literally raising, folks, 50, 100, $200 million a year. The value on that knowledge and how to do it, roughly $2,500. So if I add on those bonuses to what we spoke about earlier, okay, the total value of all this is now almost $13,000. And you can see off on the side of the screen samples of what some of my students have actually put together. You can see a beautiful one-pager, okay, that talks about a multifamily fund. You can see the cover of what an offering memorandum looks like with the logo. In the very back, you can see the cover of a PowerPoint presentation that, again, one of our students put together so he could go out and raise $2.5 million to buy a e-commerce business. But here's the secret. If all this did for you guys is teach you how to raise just a few $1 million over the next year, would it be worth it? If all this did was allowed you to raise enough money to just buy three small investment properties, some single family houses, would it be worth it? If all this did was just give you 2 investors over the next 6 months that wrote you checks for 100 grand, would it be worth it? You see, what is just one investor worth? If one person writes you a check for 50 grand so you can go out and flip a house and share in the profits where you make $25,000, $30,000, or if one investor gives you 100,000 or a bigger investor gives you 500,000, how does it change things? How much would you pay to get 2 people to write you $50,000 checks every month? That's 1.2 million if you annualize that. Okay, I got to a point, folks, where we were raising $100,000 almost every day. That was a game changer. That's what enabled me to really grow a platform and put 35 people on my payroll. So you can see why there's a lot of people that physically pay me $12,500 to $50,000 or more to literally giving me equity in their deals to teach them how to do this. I have people literally that say, Brad, man, if you teach us how to do this, we'll actually give you some equity in the deal. We want you to be included because we've tried and it ain't working and we know that you can help us. You see, if you were to get a single person that invested $100,000 with you, where all you did was make $5,000 one time, wouldn't it make sense to pay me $5,000 to learn how to do that? Because then every single investor after that very first one would be pure profit in your pocket, okay? You'd be up and running, you'd be getting revenue, you'd be getting appreciation, you'd be well on your way. All you need, folks, is just one investor. You can see why it's a great deal at $5,000, okay? You can see why it's an even better deal at $37.95. but because you guys are special and you're still here with me at the end of the presentation on how to raise money, I'm going to make it available for just $1,297. And there's the website you can go to right there. It's https:// the word go with a period, my name, bradblazar.com/join. That will share the entire registration enrollment page that goes into the entire Capital School program, talks about how we teach people to raise money, has testimonials from other people that have been properly coached that are using this today, right now. But I'm also going to throw in another third bonus. I'm going to give you some strategy calls with me. Some people need help. Some people just want to get on the phone and talk about their deals. And if that's you, I'm going to give you this amazing third bonus, and that is calls with me. Okay, that's where we can get on the phone, 30-minute strategy calls. I'll give you up to 3. That's a $1,297 value where we can talk about what you're doing and what you need. So get started now today, folks, just $1,297. We have payment options available as low as $477. You can get started for $477, pay it out monthly, get in the training. We train every week on Thursday afternoon at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. You get access to a private enrollment area. You get access to a Facebook group where all the coaching content, all the templates, all the emails, all the videos are there. The great thing about it is, God forbid, if you ever miss one of the live trainings, you can just go right to the private enrollment area a couple minutes later, and the replay and the recording is right there. So you don't miss anything at all in learning how to do this. You got 2 choices, okay? You could do nothing at all, don't take any action, and absolutely nothing. But here's the key. It's risk-free. I put a guarantee on everything I do. The second option is you could pony up a small investment today compared to all the value that you're going to get in return. If I unbundle this, like I said, it'd be worth roughly $14,000, and just give it a shot. If it works, great. You're off to the races. You're making money. You're getting investors. You're investing in real estate. You're buying a business or whatever. And if it doesn't work, just ask for your money back and you'll get it, because we have a money back guarantee. If you don't like it and you give it a try for any reason, I don't care if it's on the 29th day, the 23rd hour, and 59 minutes, you just let me or my team know and we'll give you 100% money back guarantee. So get started now, folks. There's the website. Again, it's https:// with 2 backslashes, the word go with a little dot, bradblazar.com, again, a backslash, and the word join. Now, here's the real question. Is it worth gambling just a few minutes to check this out? Which, if it does just half of what I claimed on the webinar, you're well on your way and will literally pay for itself with your very first investor, and then pay dividends to you for the rest of your life every day thereafter. So get started again. There is the website right there. One more time, I'll also put it in the chat. Other methods that people have used and tried, folks, just sometimes don't work. They take months longer to see results, going through due diligence, planning events. With this, you can get your first couple of investors literally in as short as 4 to 5 weeks, because the 4-step outline works. You can be well on your way to raising a few $100,000 in the first couple of months, getting literally a 5x return on your investment. Again, there's the website, folks. I want to share what I call the tale of 2 people. You see the little guy over there, the feeble guy, right, with the glasses? That guy did not take action. And many, many years later, he looked back on his life and he said, you know what? I've got a lot of regret, because I had so much potential and it's now been wasted. I can't turn back the clock. I cannot go back in time. I wanted to do something big, and now it's too late. The other person, of course, like you can see the logo over my shoulder, decided to be a beast. He decided to go pro. He decided that he was going to be a champion and he was going to commit to his better future. And so for a few $100, if you want to pay in full, $1,297, he got the course. He started learning, he put some action behind it. He was off to the races, learning the secrets of how to raise investor capital using other people's money to literally create wealth and change his life. So let me show you how to do this, folks. Again, there's the website, https, semicolon with 2 backslashes, the word go, period. My name, Brad Blazar. Just make sure you spell my last name correctly. It's Blazar with an A.com. Join. And here's what you're going to get. All of this great stuff in what we call Capital School. You're going to learn how to put together your kit. You're going to learn basically how to get on the phone and pitch investors, or better yet, if you use crowdfunding, or even if you use your social media, you'll understand that you don't want to sell and you don't want to pitch right away. You've got to do it right. Now, I'm nothing special. I'm not great at Facebook. I'm not great at Instagram. I'm not great at LinkedIn. I'm really not that good at putting together or hosting investor events. But folks, I've spent 25 years raising $2 billion of trial and error, working with others to discover what works. And after raising $2 billion and being the go-to guy for people like Roland Frazier and Brandon Dawson and others, I tell you what works. You can spend countless months or maybe even years doing it the wrong way, trying to figure out what works. Why would you do that when you can bridge the gap and literally learn from an expert and get right on track to do it right the very first time? So again, what you're going to get, the blueprint, okay, $14.97 value, the template to create your own offering memorandum, crowdfunding ebook, literally where to go to get a list of investors to invest in your deal, the 9 truths of how to raise the money the right way. And then 3 bonuses, folks: how to get into big family offices, how you can get them to write you checks, how you can put together a selling group, how you can get broker dealers to review and approve your offering, and then a series of strategy calls. The unbundled retail value, $14,500 if I unbundled it. Today, folks, $477 if you finance it, or if you pay it all up front, just $1,297. Get into Capital School. Learn the secrets of how to do this. Now, what I want to share with you just real quickly, folks, is I want to share with you exactly what the enrollment area looks like so that you can see exactly what it is you would get if you choose to move forward and actually do this. On my screen, I actually have the enrollment area. This is what you would get access to learn how to do this. And as you can see here, I click on here, the 4-step sales blueprint. There's an entire hour-long instructional video that walks you through this, okay? You click on the link here, boom, it opens up the blueprint. Here it comes. Shows you exactly what this is and exactly how this works. Folks, every tool you need is right here for the making. All you have to do is just make the decision to move forward and take action. Crowdfunding 101. Again, there's a video. Shows you exactly how to take advantage of all of these big crowdfunding platforms. And then what I do is I give you the lists of where to go, the different crowdfunding sites. There's a lesson plan, folks, exactly how to do this. So like I said, if you've ever had the desire to learn how to raise money, to fund your deals, to move forward, to buy bigger assets, this is the way to do it. I happened to see Grant Cardone last year. He came here to Houston. I was right there in the front row. I work very closely with Brandon Dawson, have Brandon actually on my podcast, and just this week was actually with Matt Buchanan, who was a speaker at 10X, and Matt had me come in and speak, folks. Grant Cardone has a famous saying. His saying is, your money is in the pockets of other people. All you got to do is learn how to go up and ask for it. Folks, I've been asking for 20 years. That's why I've raised over $2 billion. That's why I've been able to do deals. Like Grant says, like I'll say, and like I say again, get you some money. Learn how to do it, because all the money you ever need to do anything in life, folks, is out there for the taking once you're taught, trained, and understand how to go get it. That's it for me, Jason. I'm going to put the website and everything here into the chat so that everybody has access to that. Once again, thank you so much for hosting me on the summit. I think we've got about 5-6 minutes if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask before your next speaker comes on.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Thank you so much, Brad. Awesome job. You definitely want to get involved in Raising Capital School. I'm one of Brad's students, and his other program, Build a Beast, is fantastic. So you definitely want to get involved with Brad. Our next speaker is actually going to be me. So if you guys have any questions, you want to type them in the chat for Brad here for a few minutes before I come on, as I'll be our last speaker for the day. And I'll be talking about how to create your virtual events and live events and what you need to do and what you need to avoid. So if you have any questions, whether you put it in the question, let me check the chat. Okay. See, you have I don't see anything right now, but if you guys have any questions for Brad Blazar, do that. Otherwise, you want to reach out to Brad. I want to thank Brad for doing a great job here at the High Performance System and a wonderful job today. Great job, Brad. Always a pleasure to have you on, and thank you again.
Absolutely. If anybody would like to, set up a 30-minute strategy call to learn more about this, what it entails, just talk about your goals, your plans, I'd be more than happy to schedule that 30-minute call for you. I just put Lisa's email info at bradblazar.com. Just send us a DM. You can look me up actually on Instagram and follow me on Instagram, folks. If you're not doing so already, I make the promise that I will follow you back. There's my Instagram, whatever you call it, handle, whatever it's called, at Brad Blazar. If you're interested in our podcast, subscribe on YouTube or just come to my website, bradblazar.com. You'll see at the very top there, the podcast link. Like I said, folks, we've got the second highest ranked podcast according to Yahoo Finance and Yahoo News to help get you through COVID-19. And I think that's due to the great guests we bring on the show that just add and lead with value. So Jason, have a great weekend. Everybody that's on the call here, Jerry, Harold, Gary, Julia, Ladidra, be safe, be well, and most importantly, stay healthy and always be great.
Thank you so much, Brad. I really appreciate you being on here at the High Performance Summit. So want to thank again. You definitely want to reach out to Brad Blazar. Next speaker is going to be myself, Jason Burke, and I'm going to be going over how to create your own virtual events and live events. And just to give you a little background about me, I've done over 200 events since 2010. I've worked with some of the top companies in the space, including Realty Foreign Magazine, Expo, which I did about 6 real estate expos. I worked with Power Team National, ran the events for 4 years in the Vegas market. I worked with Brad Blazar, Matt Million, Paul Fink, Mike Wolf, Hugh Zareski, the Noteworthy Convention, just to name a few. I actually got into the event space totally by accident back in 2010 when I went to the second Las Vegas Real Estate Insiders Club meeting, and the guy Glenn Plantone was stepping down, so I volunteered to take over the group. And the first meeting we were taking over the group, my partners at the time, Frank and Sylvia, picked us up in Vegas, picked me up. It was hot. We were heading to the meeting with all the groceries in the back, and the car broke down. So we had to have Khalid pick us up, my other friend, and drive us to the meeting. We were the last ones at the meeting, and he handed it off. But from there, I took it over and made my own. I did local real estate speakers. I did real estate seminars, real estate events. I got to work with some of the national players like Mac Million, Paul Fink. I met Linda back in 2012-13 in LA at her expo where I was going out to a trip with a friend, Mark Collard. Yes, we'll put Brad's info in the chat. He did put some stuff in the chat, Harold. So if you look in the chat, and I'll be posting in the chat as well. And so I met Linda in 2013. I was introduced. I went to LA Expo, and we did about 6 real estate expos in the Vegas market. In 2014, I met Bill Walsh from Power Team National. I was at a Michael Lafayette at the Connell Summit. And I met Bill, and I ended up running Bill's events and entrepreneur nights and corporate events for 4 years in Vegas from 2014-18, while I continued to do my own real estate events. And in 2018, I launched the High Performance Assessment, which is a 2-day event designed to help real estate investors, entrepreneurs grow their businesses. So I know a lot about events. And what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to start by talking about virtual events. Typically, with your virtual events, you want to have a theme, you want to have an audience, you want to know who you're going to reach out to with that virtual event. And that's the first step. Once you've determined that, the next step you want to do is you want to pick a technology platform. Like we'll use a Zoom today. There's Webinar Jammer, there's Google Meets, there's Hangouts. There's all types of different technology platforms. It depends on your needs and what experience you're going to create for your customers. If you're going to do a more webinar, are you going to do a networking? Yeah. And so that is more of that at the end of it. So you want to look at places like Zoom, Webinar Jammer, StreamYard, all good platforms to use. And there's other ones as well. But once you pick the platform, then what you want to do after that is you want to think now, okay, I picked the platform, I have the event, I have the date. How am I going to reach my audience? How are we going to market the event? So how are we going to create that? And there's a couple of different ways. Some things to consider. Meetup is a good place. Meetup, you can create a community of people and promote your events and everything. You can use Eventbrite also. And you can also post your events on Eventbrite, and there's a way to get the data, the information, which includes if you use the settings order forms, a customized setting, and put it on buyers only. And then also make sure people put the cell phone in, you can collect that data from there if you don't have your own personal website. And Eventbrite will broadcast it out to their network. So that's another way you can promote your events. You can also use social media, such as Facebook, have a Facebook group. You can use LinkedIn. You can use LinkedIn events to invite your LinkedIn connections to invite them to your events. You can also join LinkedIn groups as well. You can use Instagram to post your events as well. And you can do all those things. And you can use Twitter for short sentences to get out the message as well. So there's different ways you can promote your virtual events, especially now on the social platforms and everything like that. And that is really good because you can create a lot of great experience. Another thing you want to think is speaker selection. You want to think what content you're going to deliver, who's going to be the best speakers to that, what value they're going to deliver to your audience. And you want to pick those out. And you also want to customize. You can customize sponsorships, or you can bring, at the beginning, you can bring people on to speak. But as you get more experience, you can put packages together to charge to speak as well, or charge to sponsor, because you're giving them so much of an audience to be in front of. And remember, when you're doing this time, you can create your virtual library, your virtual content where you can repackage later on into an academy and sell that content because you created all the content from your virtual events. Another great thing with the virtual events is it gives you the ability to track data and information. So when we do get back to a situation where we can do a live event, you know what markets you should be investing in, where to take your live events at, because you've tracked it through virtual. So you know if you get more people in New York or Vegas or Miami or wherever those numbers are showing up for you, is maybe we want to consider doing an event there that makes financial sense. So the virtual events is a great thing, especially when you're first starting out, and especially now during COVID, but you don't have the overhead like the hotels and the AV and the food and all that stuff. It gives you a great chance to really hone in your event until you get it down. So when you're doing a live event, you know already your target audience, you know the people you're going to reach out to, you know your marketing partners and JV partners and stuff like that. And all those things come into when you do a virtual event. Really, also having a system. Like yesterday, we had Darren, if we have MailChimp, or we had Darren with Infusion. Keep having it in one place and having a system where you can constantly be touching people and building on that. These are all some of the things that we need to know when we're doing a virtual event, because part of the virtual experience right now is we can reach people across the globe and not limited to people traveling because of COVID. So these are some of the things you really want to look at when you're doing your virtual events, and make it into great possible experience possible. Also, what I'm going to do is also talk about some live events and talk about how you can create that. Now, right now, everyone's doing a lot of virtual because of COVID-19, and we probably won't see the live event space really come back to the third or fourth quarter of next year, is my thought, between the third quarter and the first quarter of 2022. But I want to go over it now so you can think of it as we get in later into 2021 as we get a vaccine. And I've done a lot of live events, and I'll tell you this from experience, basically. When you first start out live events, what's a great strategy to save you a lot of money is if you find companies with a training room, and they may be willing to barter and trade a small fee, or you give them speaking time, or a combination of both. If you have your audience fits the ideal customer, you may be able to get AV and a training room at a very reasonable price. It saves you at the beginning thousands of dollars. And I did this a lot with my Vegas RIA meetups. And what I do is I bought a trade room, I pay a small fee, I have AV, I have a room, I'd be saving thousands of dollars. And that's important when you're doing your live events. What you also want to look at while you're doing live events, besides what we went over, determining your audience, your way you're marketing, how you're going to market it, like we went over Meetup, Facebook, using Eventbrite. And keep in mind with Eventbrite, you can have your photo, you can have an online event where you can have your Zoom webinar link. You can also, if it's a live event, you just put in an address and you have a link for them to have tickets. You can also share it on Facebook. You can also set the settings where you can set payments for your events. Just be aware of Eventbrite. The current policy is it's usually 5 days after the event that you'll get the ticket revenue. So you're not going to get it as it comes in unless you have it to an external website or you have it linked to your PayPal account. I just thought that was very important because Eventbrite kind of modified that policy with COVID-19. So there's different ways that you can promote live and virtual events, like social media, Facebook posts, engagement, Facebook groups, closed-in communities, Meetup, and building your own Meetup community. Great way to do that. I mean, you can have a Meetup basic plan that's like $25 a month for 3 groups, so you can do 6 months for like $98. And if you get more groups than 3, you can go to Meetup Pro. That's a great way of doing that. You have Instagram where you can share videos and photos of your events and tag people on there. You have LinkedIn, which actually allows you to create LinkedIn event, invite your LinkedIn invitations. You can do that. And then you also have Twitter for shorter memes and blurbs, stuff like that. You have your email list. You want to get people on the email list and get people bought into what you're doing. And then also on the live event sector of things, if you're going to do a hotel, there's a couple things you got to know, especially right now in the COVID, because I do see a few small live events. You got to know what's the meeting capacity can hold safely, what they can hold safely in meeting capacity, what restaurants are open. You got to also understand what's the AV cost. Can you bring in your own AV? Also, if you do have sleeper rooms, say if you have a large event, you want to have a block of rooms for your speakers or guests, you really need to know the count, and you got to have it in your agreement that you can have opt out in enough time that the hotel can resell those rooms, because if they can't resell those rooms and you don't opt out, you as the organizer are stuck paying the bill, and that could be an expensive bill, and I know. So you want to look at that, and you want to look at the contracts you have, because every hotel is different. And some hotels will let you pay after the event. Some will want a deposit and pay before. Every hotel runs a little bit differently. And certain states have different laws, like Massachusetts and California. Some union shops, you have to have their AV guy be there and pay that. Other places, you don't need that. So those are important things to know on the AV front when it comes to live events. Also, when it comes to the sleep rooms, you want to structure the contract where any of the unused rooms, the hotel will be on the hook for, because you give them enough time to resell the rooms. And really, when you're marketing and you naturally your speaker sponsors and your sponsors, you want to tell them what to expect, the agenda, what they're going to get, what time they need to show up. Also, when you're setting up a live event, it's good to be there an hour and a half to 2 hours ahead of time to set up the room, to make sure the meeting space is the way you want it. The room set up, the chairs, the registration, the sales tables in the back are all set up, because you can never assume that. Remember, hotel workers will do what they necessarily have to do, but sometimes you get to the room and it's not set up or this thing's missing. This is why you get there early, because you or your team need to be there like an hour and a half, 2 hours early to make sure the room's the way you want to. If you can get into the room the night before, that's even better. But at least an hour and a half, 2 hours before the event starts, to make sure the room is the way you and the hotel agree to be set up and everything be the way you want it. So you don't run into last minute problems and everything like that. You also got to make sure your speakers stay on time with the agenda. This is regardless of a virtual and live event. So remember, some speakers, you got to give them especially on a live event, you got to give them like the 10, 5 and wrap up signs. And you got to make sure they stay on track, because if they go too long, it can set your schedule back. And you got to allow some wiggle room in your schedule. Give yourself about an hour to 2 hours flex. So if you think your event's going to end at 6, have the room to 8. If you think it's going to end at 5, have the room to 7. Give yourself some flexibility in case things don't go the way you want, or you're running behind schedule because of different factors. Because I've had people that speakers are late, people can't speak at a certain time, speakers back out in the last minute, and all of a sudden you have to move people out. People are late, so someone has to go and fill in the time. So you got to expect the unexpected. It's also important to have your sales team and a core team on the ground, the people you can trust, and the volunteers. You have someone to run the volunteers and what they need to be doing, greeting guests, registering guests. It's all about the experience you create at the live event. just like it is with virtual. Only virtual is just through a computer, but especially with the live event, people going to have the networking sessions, breakout sessions, lunch. So you want to coordinate all that with the meeting place, a hotel. And like I said, if you use an office training room, chances are you can order out and bring the food in, because that's not going to be an issue. Or they may even provide some food because you're putting them in front of the ideal audience. These are all things to consider when you're doing your live and virtual events. And it's one of the things you want to really consider, not only how to market events, how to put on the events, the AV of the events. You want to consider what the meeting space setup, what time parameters, what's the agenda, who's going to keep track of everything. And so that takes time and effort, but it gives you right now one a great place on the virtual side of things where you can do events, webinars, networking events. If you're doing hangout events, you can even look at Google Meets and things like that. Zoom has the meeting feature, which has breakout rooms. So there's different platforms and different things to put on your live events, and that's all virtual events, which we're all in mostly right now. But those are just some tips and tricks that you can do to really enhance the event experience, and also make sure that not only your audience is getting what they want, but your speakers are getting what they want. You also want to record the events, whether it be live or virtual, so you can use that content for later. So you can package that content for your own self later on into your own academy. That's another strategy you want to do. And so these are just some of the things that I've learned over my experience in years. And I'll be actually coming out with my ebook here for the next summit we're going to be having on December 12th and 13th. I'm going to also be coming out with my own event coaching. I'll be offering either in December or January at the very latest, teaching people how to put on their virtual events, what the pitfalls and how to put on live events, and what to look for and what to avoid. So I just wanted to give some really good quality information. Does anyone have any questions regarding events or how to put on your virtual events, how to put on your live events? Be happy to answer that. Let me look in the chat. Yeah, I know Hal said about the 3-day training. That is actually Mike Wolf. Mike will have that. If you want to email me, Harold, and I will put my email in there, and I'll get you in touch with Mike for the 3-day training. Brad is the Raising Capital School and the Build a Beast program. So if anyone has any questions for me in the chat, I will happily answer that. For anyone here at the High Performance Summit, where you have questions on events, you have questions on real estate or anything, networking. Yesterday I went over the talk of networking and influencers. So happy to answer any questions anyone has regarding that for the summit events. Otherwise, what I will do is I'm going to put my contact information in the chat, and we'll end a little early. Our next event is going to be December 12th and 13th, and we will be updating the page this week and doing announcements probably early next week on the event coming up in December. So that will be our last event for 2020, and then we have a whole virtual calendar for 2021. So what I want to do is thank everyone for attending the High Performance Virtual Summit, a full 2 days. Like I said, you got a chance to meet some great people: Brad Blazar, Mike Wolf, Paul Fink, Darren Adams, Sophia Joseph, Hugh Zareski, over days of really great clay. And Mike will hook you up with the information you need. And I want to thank everyone for attending the 2-day High Performance Virtual Summit event. My name is Jason Burke. Our next event will be December 12th and 13th here on Zoom, and we will be announcing the speakers and